Yeah, if you got a cover on it, whatever, however you want to do it, or you got your own computer, so this will have like software and this key for it. Okay. It says in VGA. If you have a mail VGA,
And so this is the sign that you can.
because you want.
Oh, that's great.
He was sitting right across from me.
Okay, yeah, that's USB. So let me plug this.
Let's see if it just.
Maybe it wouldn't go.
Yeah, no, the part is.
It's like when you say, I'm going to start from the and all of a sudden,
Yeah, we try to miss the time hours in the table.
you don't even go to this stuff.
I don't need to talk.
Yeah. We're, you know what, we're making Oh, thank you.
We don't know what we're doing, so
Oh,
it's
no,
all
you're
about.
fine.
So, start with code.
I have this,
Sounds like something.
This is a filter that has been.
Okay, yeah, great, we got it.
It's, basically, you know what's one part of the big problem? Zach was giving us, Zach got the laps. Is it in the, makes him right now, he was,
Let's see whether or not it's.
he gave himself and somebody.
Actually, probably.
He still does that.
Yeah, he would tell the same for, and then,
Oh, this is one question. He's working on that.
So they decided to take,
It's like a person.
they took that as their opportunity. You know, the sidewalk, that is, yeah, he has got to go through it.
Super loud.
It wouldn't be technology.
There, yes, nailed it.
Because it was the bottom. Then it's you.
Yes. Well,
That's a little bit. Sarah used to be. Sarah used to be.
Oh, got it. What idea is this? You can't go in the little chart, but forward.
It seems like you, if I had this, when you choose to speak.
Well,
Microsoft 610 cannot be repaired.
Kathy, over, try to get a air shot. Try it again, it gives you just try it again.
This is run just fine.
Why, it's called power cord, but there's the wire. I only having power over here. I'm letting you know. Maybe not tell you, Joe. It can't hurt you.
Let us do an invitation for the gods of the electronics. Let's do
I like the place. Yeah, that's what I
Don't worry about it, I'll work around it.
Okay.
If you get it halfway through,
All
right. Okay, so everybody, we're about to begin with our next speaker. Can I get everybody's attention? Okay. All right, so our next speaker is giving a lecture on basic sigil magic. He is a practicing magician for over 20 years in multiple systems. He's written the book titled Hands-on Chaos Magic. He has a degree in psychology with a high emphasis on cognitive science, and he has a master's and is working on his second. So please welcome Mr. Andrea Vitimus.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? So I haven't been around yet. I've been working on that second master's degree, which they promptly scheduled a 40-page paper due the same week I had this conference. At the last minute, 3 weeks ago. So I have to happily say, since the morning, I'm now on page 25. I'm almost there. So, how many people here have actually done any kind of sigil magic? This is one of the most first things you learn if you ever pick up a chaos magic book anyone's, or you go on the internet before you get horrified by chaos magic. When you go on the internet, did it work? No, that's what most people's reaction is. Surprise! This simple technique, and we're going to cover it. It works. It works most of the time. And in fact, when you really look at a lot of the occult books coming out right now, on the higher levels, you know, the goat skin books, they are typed from having done chaos magic for 20 years, chaos magic, of which where they're integrating a personal language of sigils, their own personal sigils, and sharing them with people, everyone else. And they work. Where that comes from is an understanding of how sigils actually work, the language of sigils, the internal language of sigils. And they craft that into beautiful art pieces and share it, and it works because it's got that equivalent force. The base skill for that is still, back to Phil Hine, back to Spare, sigil magic. Spare sigil magic looks a lot like what people are doing now, a lot of times. What does Spare do? Well, besides jerking off to the sigil, putting it into a clay jar, burying it for a month, and then pulling it out of the ground for a month, it was putting that intention, and he would draw the sigil out in the most beautiful fashion. Have any of you seen Spare's artwork? Spare's artwork is unbelievably beautiful. Even his sigils are like, and you see this trend, actually. This is also a modern trend, right? Most of the newer books are using that method. Maybe without the jar and burying it and the lunar cycle. But there's a lot of that going on. What happens is then you get a scientist who's like poo-pooing all this stuff, which is Peter Carroll. And he's like, what is the minimum I need to do to get this to work? What? I don't want to sit here and draw stuff. I'm a physicist, not a pool man. So, you know, he asks, what is the minimum that I could do to get this to work? And then we get this classical chaos magic idea of making a drawing based on your intent and using some sort of gnosis directly in, and boom, it works. Because what he realized is that you could extract away the art, you could extract away the jar in the ground for a month, that these were things that were not critical. What was important was what was going on in here. What was going on here and what was going on outside of here, out there, when the sigils are put in. So what is a sigil? Does anyone do runes? Those are much older and ancient sigils, right? Does anyone use bind runes particularly? Kind of act like sigils. Put the intent into an alphabet, draw it out. Does anyone use magical alphabets of any sort to make bind rune type things, right? They kind of look like sigils too. Classically, originally, and I think this is mainly because Philip Heine and Peter Carroll were very visually orientated, everything was about visual sigils. Everything. That's what all the chaos magicians were doing. It was the rage. The thing is what is actually a sigil is an encapsulation of the intent into an alternate sensory form. It's a sleight of mind in itself. That doesn't mean that your sigil has to be a visual representation. It could be a dance, which would be kinetic. It could be a combination of scents, which could be an incense. That could be your whole magical operation, like the incense and silicate. It could be mantras. It could be a power word, like Harry Potter, if you worked on it enough. Keyword, worked on it enough. It could be any of these things, or combinations thereof. That's not explicit when you look at all the different things. It is explicit in Hands on Chaos Magic, but it's not explicit in some of the other books. Because all that sigil is just a representation. Hell, the sigil could be graffiti when you're walking in the ghetto. Here's your sigil for your intent. Go into trance state. You know what your intention is. Your mind knows what it is, and go to town. Of course, you might not care what this graffiti actually means, but if you know what the graffiti is, you might throw that off, because then you might be like, except I can see a case where graffiti on the wall is kind of like telling people they're going to go murder another gang. You have an enemy, and you just go into town and tag along and say, my enemy, yeah, go murder them if you know it. So you're kind of limited by your creativity there. So one of the problems with sigil magic, after you get past the first stages, when you get results, you start asking for more and more complicated things. It's the way we ask that is often problematic. Anybody do computer programming or know about it? So there's a phrase, garbage in, garbage out, right? This is kind of how intentions are. So sigils aren't like spirits. You can't just go and talk to a spirit, and they kind of know where you're coming from. They know what you want. Sigils are, here's what you're asking for, and here's what you're going to get. If that isn't what you expected, well, should have been more clear. So a lot of the stuff, so that isn't discounting a lot of the traditional left-hand path techniques, the traditional right-hand path techniques of meditative study, of consistent mastery, because you still have to know yourself, because you have to know what you're casting for. So, generally speaking, although this is one-on-one, basic kind of stuff, I feel like I always should say this, is to phrase your intentions in a positive way. And by positive, I don't mean positive, per se. I mean positively stated. So if I was going to say, I wanted someone to die, or I wanted them to get sick, or something like that, right? I could say, you know, I don't want them around. Well, don't. It's that don't problem. Your subconscious mind doesn't get don't, or not, or negations at all. So when you go in a ritual and try to do that, your subconscious mind kind of goes, I'm just not going to do anything. That's safer. So you have to positively say something. So if you want money, you don't say, I would like to get rid of my bills. No. Instead, you phrase it in a way that's usually, it's more effective to say, I would like additional money to come to me. That's key, because if you try to phrase it in a negative way, usually it gets iffy. It gets confusing. The second thing is when you start with the intent, and that's what we're starting with, is this idea of should, would, want. Who cares? You want to want? No, you want shit, right? So that's one of the most critical points, is to not use those kind of words. Classically, when Peter Carroll was still trying to give lip service to the dilemma a little bit more, he would use the phrase, it is my whim to do X, Y, and Z. That's a classical thelemic construction of stating intent. It's clearly where Peter Carroll's, although he disagrees with thelemic, he's clearly coming from that school of thought, coming out of that. So he uses a classical, it is my will to do X. I usually just at this point, and I've seen him kind of at this point just go, X will happen by next time. Period. It's definitive. It says what's going to happen. The universe doesn't think, am I trying to enchant for what he wants to want? He's enchanting for this. It's specific. So in business class, I'm going over SMART goals right now, which is, actionable, responsive, time. Well, all this kind of stuff applies directly to the sigil intentions you're going. Can you get feedback from the goal? Believe it or not, this is a big and hard problem with intentions. When has it succeeded? How would you know? What does it look like? Now, I haven't gone over the techniques of sigil magic yet, but this is true if you're doing any kind of spirit work too. But with sigil magic, it gets amplified even more. The spirit will take luxuries to say, well, I kind of know what this person wants, and I know what they were getting at. Sigil is, here's the machine, here's what you get. Remember? Your machine is you and the universe. Here's the machine, here's what you get. So if you put that in, it will get confused. Don't kind of understand that? It's one-on-one stuff, but it's worth pointing out. If you don't have measurable goals in your sigil magic operations, you have no metric to know that you're getting better. With no metric to know that you're getting better, you have no idea whether that you're mastering magic of this sort or not. That's important. Because if you have no way to judge whether you're successful or not with your magic, how are you influencing the world? Even the left-hand hat perspective, how are you gaining more power if you can't measure it? If it is an amorphous intent, you may not understand that you actually got what you asked for until years after. And then you've forgotten that you've done any magic about it, which ultimately you will forget the sigil, but you at least know that you did the magic for it. I think that this is probably the thing that hits magicians the hardest often, is that they don't get feedback because their intentions don't build feedback in. And there's no sense of mastery. Does anyone take martial arts at all? If you take any martial arts, what is the key to getting better in martial arts is constant feedback. You're always getting feedback. This could be the way you get better at any skill. And with sigil magic and magic, it's there too. How do you get better is you keep knowing that the feedback. So, sigil magic is, from purely materialist view, and this is almost, for Corvus's benefit, and I'm going to give him a purely materialist view of sigil magic that'll work with every NLP business counselor there, and you can promptly throw it away. But if you want to talk to anyone about sigil magic, you can use this. And they'll be like, oh, that's all you're doing? So what are you doing? So you cast a sigil. Go into a trance state, use the sigil. You're reframing your mind, changing your subconscious mind, which then notices different things in the environment, producing different choices. More magical people might call it synchronicity. but you've noticed more choices. You have sorted differently. Your mind is picking different options and presenting it to you. With different options, you make better choices, which brings about the outcome you were sigilizing in the first place. And then after this becomes a habit, you just do this automatically. You might not even think about it, because now it's reinforcing itself. Do I really think sigils work this way? No, not really. Not all the time. Sometimes, yes. Use your own explanation. But from a purely materialist left-hand path view, with no spirit work, no astral plane, nothing, this is an effective analogy for what's going on. You can explain it however you want. You can say it's going out there. You could explain it other ways. But it brings up an interesting point about sigil magic that most people think, oh, you just do this little thing, you use Grant Morrison whack-off method and get what you want. Except it doesn't quite happen that you come out unscathed. It's not quite going to happen that you do your sigil magic and there's no alterations to yourself. In fact, you could do your sigil magic and your subconscious mind and universe and all the things might say, well, you need to change this behavior and bring about an event which causes you to do this, X, Y, and Z, that changes your personality, and you get what you want. Just like that. Through that convoluted way, because it was the easiest way to manifest it. This notion that you can just fire this and forget it, and there's no impact on you personally, has never been my experience with sigil magic either. Especially if you're getting all in on the sigil magic. You'll notice, you'll change. You do more and more sigil magic, your perspective will change. You will be changing with the environment that you're changing. So purely materialist view, although I don't completely agree with it, is a justifiable answer. Just to demonstrate one mechanism how it could work. So there's a basic formula of sigil magic. It's like 5 steps. It's pretty easy, so I have to talk around or anything else, like I've been doing. So what's the basic steps, right? Center or banish. Why? Garbage in, garbage out. Come to a sigil magic operation, you're worried about money, do the sigil operation, you're going to amplify your worry about money. Do a sigil magic operation where you're stressed and pissed off because work sucked, you're going to go into the gnosis and get more stressed and pissed off. So garbage in, garbage out. So that's the first thing, coming to the state of the clean state. There's all kinds of methods. Hands-on chaos magic gives a whole bunch of chapters. There's a whole bunch of internet banishing rituals. If you want to use the lesser banishing rituals with pentagram, it's perfectly fine. Or if you want to call the 4 infernal lords of hell, it's fine. Whatever gets you centered in a good place to go. Then you choose your weapon of choice, trance of choice. Apparently the stage didn't like the weapon. Trance of choice. So what's trance of choice? Well, we're all adults here. It could be sex, the wanking off method. That will work. It could be meditation, Buddhist-style meditation. It could be hanging yourself up in a tree and getting, I don't know how that sun ritual exactly works, but they hang for days. It could be ethnogens. It could be progressive relaxation. It could be NLP. It could be running around the room. It could be doing your workout. In fact, I know people who often, when they're working out, will do sigil magic once they learn it a lot. At the last rep, when they're like, because the point is, you're taking your conscious mind and going, because your conscious mind gets in the way, it brings all your worries, your issues, all the things you've been trained, brings that all into line when you're doing the sigil magic. And then what happens? Garbage in, garbage out. The closer you can get to this, what Peter Carroll called Gnostic state, which is a horrible, horrible way for him to say that, because everyone who does any Gnostic studies will be like, oh! Right? The closer you get to this, and he has formulas, because he's a physicist. He has so many formulas. But the closer you get to this, the more likely your match to succeed, depending on the situations for what you're asking for. That depends a little bit about it, because if you're asking to win the lottery, you might have to put a little bit more mojo in it. It might take a little bit more effort. Although I have won the lottery for $2. Hail Eris. On 2/23. No, it was 3/23, so it was pretty clear it was her. So I thought, chaos, God, I'll win the lottery because it's a chaos system. $2. I felt proud that day. I learned a lesson about specificity. So I've used sigils just in ways to bend reality that's pretty cool. Anyone from Illinois or a state that has emissions?
Illinois.
Yep. If you're from Illinois or a state that has emission laws, you know that certain styles of emissions in certain Hondas are illegal. And I used to drag race cars previous to my career as an occult prophet, I guess. You don't need anything. You just need a good car. Mama, I'm on ding-a-ding-lang, my ding-a-long-ling-long. That's a ministry quote. But I had an illegal emission system. I was screwed. Totally screwed. Went to the mission, thinks, I'll get 90 days to fix this somehow. I passed. God just passed me through. So how did I do that? I had a specific intention to just pass through the EMP thing. Sigilize the thing, cast that on the lane that I was at, because I had to wait in line for a good 30 minutes. Got up to the place and he said, go on through. Did I ask to influence the guy? No. Did I ask for them to ignore my system? No, because it's not what I really wanted. I asked just to go on through and let it pass. That's exactly what happened. That's specificity. I knew what exactly I wanted. Likewise, you're asking for money, and you get $1 or $2. You see the problem here? You have to ask for how much you want to have. Then it becomes, how reasonable is it for you to pull that amount of money or resources in, given where you're at? That's a much harder question. Right, if you have a business and you want to have a good month, let's say you want to have an extra $2,000, is that something that is even possible? As you get further out from what is actually possible with your sphere of availability right now, the difficulty of the sigil gets more and more difficult. And the time frame, as you compress the time frame often, the sigil magic gets more and more difficult. So if you're asking for a new girlfriend tomorrow, well, if you're at a convention like this, maybe it's possible. But if you're sitting at your house, the difficulty goes up exponentially because experiential-wise, it's just, there's not avenues for it to happen. It could still happen. You could still run across the street and bam, there's a connection. But that's more difficult than if avenues are already there. So as you go more difficult, as you compress time and the difficulty gets worse, the amount that you have to throw at a sigil magic gets harder. One of the techniques, we can't get the display going, which is fine, but one of the basic techniques of sigil magic is just to take the letters that you have for the intent, if you properly worded it, drop the duplicate letters, and make a drawing of it. It's not important that you use all the letters. It's not even important what that drawing looks like. The only thing that's important is that you think the drawing that you come up with looks pretty good, that you like it. The metric I use is if I run back and forth between here and the wall 3 times, I'm a big guy, I'll be pretty freaking tired. Can I even concentrate? Can I hold this in mind? You know, like psychologically we know we can hold 5 to 7 things in mind. It's harder and visually, but it's about the same. 5 to 7 visual elements in mind. So can you hold this in mind or not? That is the question when you're going into a forced deep trance state. If you can, it's simple enough. If it's not, the drawing doesn't matter. Make it simpler. If you know divination at that point, I usually will divine just to make sure I'm not doing something bad to myself, right? Because I might have sigilized something that'll bring about, me crashing into a wall. There might be unhidden things that the subconscious is representing. So you just do a divination just as a double check. Then once you get that, choose your flavor. One of the things I found doing sigil magic for a lot of years is that not all types of trance state work for all intentions. They kind of do, but it depends on the person, right? I can say for a fact, everyone I know that's tried to use sex magic for a curse usually goes bad. And if you think about why that is, because then you're associating sex with a hugely negative thing, and then it keeps a bad feedback loop. It's like a vitality drain at that point. Likewise, certain techniques of pain gnosis, I wouldn't do for money, for the same reason, if that makes sense. Because I don't want a meta association with that with money to pain. I don't want my subconscious to learn that. Does that make sense to everyone? From there, the sky's the limit. You can kind of match what you want. Now, I don't know, what time is it?
5:04.
So I started at 3:30. We're going to do some sigil magic together if you would like to. I have some note cards and stuff like that. There's one last point I want to cover before I actually cover the doing the sigils. And if you're willing, I'll use some hypnosis as the meditative way to launch a sigil. But it's not my sigil, it's you launching the sigil. So I have some helpers too that will help if there's questions. We'll walk around, we'll actually do something. This is after all a magic, a code conference, right? We want to do something. Don't you want to do something? Isn't there things in your life that you might want to have come in? So the last thing we're going to cover before we do this exercise, real fast, is the concept of layering. Layering is where you get some more interesting operation. So it seems like this is boring, except then you can layer upon layer upon layer of ritual. So what I like to do with sigils nowadays is to evoke a goetic demon, and I will hand it a sigil that I will focus on and tell it this is what I want. That's an example of layering. Or I will hand wrap a doll that I'll give to the cemetery and say, this is what I want, that enliven it in ritual, and call them forward and say it's there. Why? Because I'm still doing the sleight of mind, so I don't know really what it is. I'm just layering things to make it more powerful. That takes artistic ability. I can't really go into that sort of class as basic sigil magic, but I want to mention it to give you ideas. So whatever practice you're doing right now, whether it's hardcore demonology, whether it's more Latin path, whether it's Setian, satanic, whatever it is, you can layer the sigil magic operations in what you're working with now as a component of the ritual, as probably the last phase. Does everyone kind of understand that? This is where you can get into some really cool sigil operations where you're doing crazy stuff like, going backwards and forwards in time and in meditation and then casting sigils. Where you can go, this is where this happened in my life, and cast a healing sigil at yourself so it doesn't have an impact now. You can go into the future, you can do all kinds of time stuff. You can do all kinds of stuff like, okay, I have a relationship with my boss. I'm going to call up the spirit of my boss and cast a sigil at it. Right? All kinds of stuff. It opens the doors to what I think sigil, where you get into the sigil language that we're seeing in so many cult books now. This is where you develop your own sigil language in the layering process. But we're going to try a simple one, if you're all willing. You guys ready? You guys want to do one? So, write down your intention on one side. Preferably the side with lines. But it doesn't have to be. If you like lines as a sigil, it's okay. Does everyone have a pen that wants to participate? I hope they do. We can get more from the hotel. Excellent. So it's very important. Remember, positively stated, like as in drawing, not negating something in your life. Everyone get that? Also, keep in mind the second thing, not only just positive stating, it has to be a definitive statement, like fact almost. Like you can use the thelemic phrasing if you're so inclined, if it is my own, but otherwise, it has to be a fact. It's not, I would like this to happen, it would be nice if this happened, or maybe this will happen, or this is going to happen on this date, or some other definitive, powerful statement. So make sure when you write that down, that's the two components. I won't see your sigils, and I don't care what they are. You're casting sigils at me to bring me, kill me, and stuff like that. You know, I thought I did a pretty good job in class. Come on. So it's a big room, so everyone who's participating, when you have the intention, just look up. We'll go through the next stage.
I do have a question about that.
Sure.
And of course, this all gets into the causal, and the idea that time is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do a sigil, when I focus on it, it's already done.
When you get really good at it, that will often happen.
I mean, I don't say I need this or I want this to happen at a certain time. I just say it's done.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. And that's actually what happens as you get better. I think as you get better at sigil execution, sigil's done.
Yeah. And when I give it over to the gods, whether I give it to the gods of fire or water or the litter box, depending on who or what the sigil is named at.
And that's actually like another example, excellent example, when you give it over to gods, that's another layer. It's a sorcery type of layering, that you're layering the effect of sigil. That's the Catholic thing.
Once I cast it out there, it's done.
Right.
It's already happened, and it's done.
Exactly. Which is why you have to have a definitive statement when you're training.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you have any doubt in the statement, that's what your subconscious mind will almost certainly always just say, I'm not doing anything because you're not sure.
Right. And you have to be specific, too.
Yep.
Because like you said, you'll win that $2 ticket.
I'm probably
Because you weren't specific about the exact number.
That's right. Otherwise, you'll get something like Eris giving you $2 on 323, which Eris' number is 23. So that's exactly right. All the things that we talked about.
This.
Hey! Now that we're past it, now that we're doing the exercise, the gods of chaos have served us. So go ahead and if you could put it into. Let's see. Really, how you go about sigilizing things. That's all that I have on my slides, by the way, is this. Is how you take the letters and sigilize it. So you can see this is pretty, that's pretty Peter Carroll. So basically, you write down your intention. So underneath your intention, take all the duplicate letters of your intention and make sure there's only one of each letter and cross out each duplicate after the first thing in the letter. So the original sigil intention for this, which is not yours, was I will see a blue bird in 2 weeks. Because I was trying to teach people sigil magic, and it was kind of like, maybe I should give an example that's pretty safe, just in case somebody tries to cast this last sigil. So what you're doing here is that after you write down no duplicate letters, you're just literally drawing the letters together in a glyph, randomly, artistically, however you want to feel. You're just literally putting it together. That's what the first thing is. This is in the laser pointer, but the first graph is just all those letters up there put together. And I know you can't see all the letters, because you can get pretty creative in where it's actually fitting. But you don't have to worry about it. You can see some of them. There's an R, there's an S, there's an O. Right? The point is not to get hung up on where the letters are. It's just get all the letters in the artistic thing. You're kind of doing a divination with the sigil magic. But it's an artistic divination. Right? And then you can see each one I'm trying to progressively get simpler. Because I don't think I can remember it. The first one, I'm sure I couldn't remember that. The second one, maybe I can remember that. I probably could have remembered that. The third one, I'm sure I could remember if I ran back and forth to the room a few times. Or I was really drunk. Or I had so much caffeine that I was going to have a heart attack. Or some other weird combination of gnosis that I might be trying to obtain. That's all you're doing. There is no right answer. It's only right because you feel like this looks good and interesting. And I like it. That's the vibe. Like, it's like, I like it. It's not so much, it's more artistic than it is exact. Here's the ceremonial rosy cross sigil that you have to draw. No, it's more artistic.
In your opinion, would spares sigils be more of a detriment because they're so intricate?
No, because Spare's an artist.
Yeah.
So for him, they weren't intricate. It was fun. He loved it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it came down to. What he came up with, he's like, I love this sigil. I can guarantee you, when you look at his art, he loved them. And that's why. Because he's an artist, and that's what he was putting his passion into doing the sigil. If you're an artist, you can do really complicated sigils. And you'll remember them, because if you're a visual artist especially, your visual memory is probably about 1,000-fold better than mine. And you probably could have a much more complicated, beautiful sigil and remember it perfectly, every detail. So it's really kind of personal, where you're personally at with that.
So you work with your strength.
You work with your strengths on the sigil, yeah.
So why would sigils be superior to purely visualization when one has an eidetic kind of memory?
This is a good question. Visualization runs the problem that you can get into a desired result, which I was going to cover at the end of the piece after we did the sigil stuff. By seeing yourself do it, if you do it enough times, you get past desired result because you've trained your conscious mind to accept that reality. But if you do it once or twice, you get into the problem of, depending on how good you are at visualization, that you get attached to the desired result, which then allows various shadow aspects or hidden aspects to put into it. For that technique to actually work, I actually would say you have to alchemize yourself in the visualization process to the point that it is assured.
If what calcinates the visualization once it is complete is not lust for result.
Yeah, right, but there's a lot of extra skills now, right?
Absolutely.
So it's absolutely, that's why it's not necessarily any of these techniques are superior, they're just different tools that work slightly differently. So this is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. That might be like a hammer. That might be, another tool might be like a jigsaw. Each tool in your magical box is great. Does everyone have a visual sigil, at least the first version? Are they sort of happy with it? Yeah.
I'm kind of lost in between the letters at the top, which are you've knocked out all the copper letters, so you've got just the letters that are in what you've written. Okay, I got that part. And then I figured that, but from where I'm going from those letters, like on the top of your illustration here, where you cross them out, and then you go to your first sigil. Apparently, I was concentrating on what I was doing and not listening. I don't understand how you get from those letters to that sigil. That's where
The first one, right?
correct.
So just push all the letters together in any way that you see fit.
Oh, okay.
So you're just mashing them all together to get something that you can work with. Does that make sense?
Now I get it. That's too simple, that's why.
I know, it is. That's why sigil magic's fun. It's so simple. Does anyone need help? Because I have a couple people who can walk around.
How do you go from all the letters to the symbols?
The simplest?
Yeah.
Same thing. So the first thing, you're just throwing all the letters together, right? It's matched. And then you just draw it based on what you think is important. So you just ignore things. You redraw it based on what you think is important. And then you just keep redrawing it, dropping what you don't think is important. So if you looked at the first one and just kind of stare at it, you can kind of see what I thought was important in the sigil. And you just keep redrawing it. So you're just kind of dropping out garbage that doesn't need to be there. Much more of an artistic minimalism, as it were. About 2 more minutes with the seals, so we can actually go forward. So everyone almost done? You see, look up again. Everyone got their seals now? Almost done? Another minute? 1 more minute? So the thing is, too, is this is pretty adaptable. You can do this lots of places. If you're into hoodoo, you can draw the, not traditional hoodoo, but you can draw the sigil on the candle, project it into the fire.
Draw like a bad.
Yeah, you do that. Or hand it to a possessed spirit. I've done that. Voodoo priest. People get possessed. I go, here's what I want. They go, okay.
They just go right along with it.
Yep. They know what it is. It's just a side of mind for you. So you don't give them away of what they're doing. Okay, I see almost nobody writing. Just a couple more seconds. So once we cast this sigil, I want you to destroy it in some way. You can rip it up, but you'll need the paper for now. Because after we're done with the sigil, one of the things that you don't want to do is keep focusing on it. So we're going to cast the sigil, meaning you put it out there into the universe, and like Lauren was saying, the last thing you want to do is come back to it. Because then you're telling the universe, yourself, or whatever combination you believe exists out there, that you're not ready, that you haven't cast this method. You're going back to it to try to check it out. Everyone will go back to the rituals that they do in their head. The key sentence that I found in my own personal work is, that's okay. It's been taken care of. I've already taken care of that. I don't need to think about it yet. Which tells yourself, you're ready for whatever it is that you're asking for, or to change, because you're already taken care of it. So, is everyone ready to take care of some business? So this will be a very simple meditation. It'll go very fast. I think I'm projecting loud enough that everyone, even in the back, can hear it. So the first thing is, hold that sigil in your hand, because you're going to have to memorize it. If you can't memorize it, that's fine. Just make sure you think you can memorize it. If you can't memorize it, that's okay. Just try to memorize as much as you can. All right? So just hold that paper in front of you. In a moment, not right now, I'm going to have you close your eyes in the meditation. That's why you need to be able to remember. But I'm going to have you stare at this for a little while so you really can get it in your head. So, how many people have ever been around a thunderstorm? Ever? You know how thunder works, right? You've probably been close enough to feel the lightning come through you, right? So I want everyone to just start breathing as deeply as you can and stare at your sigil. And as you breathe deeper, staring at the sigil, just as it's getting darker outside, imagine storm clouds of great primal power gathering all around you. And just stare at your seal. You don't have to close your eyes yet, but if you have, just that's okay. Let yourself go into that primal power of the storm. Let it circle you. Come around you. You have your sigil. Let the storm envelop you and the power be all around you. In fact, you may be able to feel it. The rain, hear the thunder all around you. You may be even able to smell the rain washing any negativity, any worry, any stress right down away. And what gets replaced is that feeling of the power of the storm itself. You might even notice that power of the storm itself overwhelms you in a good way. It fills you in a good way. You know those special sensations when you felt powerful, mighty, in command, and in control. Where things were changing around you by your will. You were on fire. Just as if you were the storm itself creating reality. Changing reality and changing outcomes. Now, if you haven't already yet, go ahead and close your eyes and really sink into that storm. Start to feel the lightning coming closer and closer as you can see and feel your sigil in front of you. Feel the lightning coming closer and closer all around you. And then, as you breathe in and out, breathing the power of the storm in and out, feel the lightning coming into you with full power. All that power coursing through you to change reality. You can feel it like the lightning crashing down. You are the lightning of heaven changing reality. You are the lightning itself changing whatever you want. Feel it. Lightning after strike into you until you have enough lightning and push it all into the sigil. Lightning after lightning into the sigil. As the sigil becomes lightning, keep going, pulling more and more of the storm, changing the realities around you into the sigil as it becomes lightning. As you change, as the sigil becomes electrified, powerful. So much lightning, in fact, in your whole body that you can only maintain the sigil because you are coursing with power, coursing with energy, coursing with the changes you're making. All you can hold is the lightning and the sigil. Keep going as deep as you can. Feel it. Be the lightning and the sigil. Keep going deeper and deeper until it's all lightning power around you, like a flash, a continual flash, until the sigil and the lightning are one. As the storm spreads out, you notice the sigil is gone as the lightning is gone. And the reality starts altering itself around what you just did. Everything is changing. And as I count from 1 to 3, you'll open your eyes fully awake and aware, understanding how those changes have come about and what the changes are. 1, awake and aware. 2, coming back. 3, awake and aware, eyes open. How you guys doing? Ready to go kick some ass? So now, what do you do with the sigil? Rip it up, right? Because you want it to stay with metaphor. I usually burn them, or depending on what the purpose is, I'll do other things. The cat litter is one that I'm going to use. I don't have a cat. I certainly have dog food that I can mix with motor oil and go to town on that, right? Oh yeah, this is a sigil for somebody I don't like. Here you go, and dog food and motor oil.
Delicately throw them with toilet paper.
Yes, yeah. Except I don't want anything like that touching my ass. Maybe afterwards, they're just in the toilet bowl, and then they get flushed in the sewer. That's an example of layering. What you do with the sigil can actually be layering. You can do additional rituals to destroy the sigil that will empower the actual sigil magic itself more fully. Because it's a link to your intention. That's why you're destroying it, because you don't want to link back to your intention so that way you don't contaminate the results. Does that make sense? Oh, what was that, like 3 minutes? Everyone was kind of feeling energized at that. Hope. Right? Energized? Energized? In the back? At least some energy? A little? There we go. That was only like 10 minutes, right? Sure, that was a guided meditation, but it tells you that these can happen fast, especially if you're good at imagination. You can do sigil work fast. You don't have to. There's times that I will do sigil work out in the forest, and I'll just be kind of communing with the river spirits, and I know it's a left-hand path conference. God, somebody's going and communing with the river spirits. This sounds like a foo-foo, but whatever. So I'm down there communing with the river spirits, asking for something.
Could be Cthulhu.
Yeah, it wasn't Cthulhu. And basically going back and forth with the river spirits, casting the sigil in a water river, not a lightning river. Very slow, because I wanted the results to come in a nice way. So you're limited only by your imagination. Right? It's kind of like this is a paint stroke, that we're using paint metaphor, or this is a pen as opposed to a paintbrush, and you can do whatever you want. Okay. So there we go. Any questions? Sure.
In addition to my cat.
Oh, by the way, I think there's thunderstorm outside.
Well, in addition to my cat box, I have to say, I read Laundry Head's Slow Magic, among other of his books, and sort of got the idea to keep a sticky note pad in my pocket. And when I was in nursing school, especially, I didn't have time. I didn't even have 10 minutes to charge a cigarette. I mean, literally, I was on like 12-hour clinicals, and I would duck into a bathroom stall, do a quick sigil, try to focus on it, in a few minutes, and then flush it.
Yeah.
And
one of the things about this, I didn't get into it because obviously it's basic sigil, but I'll just mention it. So you can get down to stuff that I call micro enchantments.
Yeah.
Where you're doing sigils fast. And by the way, this technique, you don't even need to do this. You could just meditate and pull the sigil off and then do the sigil right from there. This is only until you get used to working with sigil, internal sigil languages. Eventually you could just scry a sigil. That's how I usually do it now. I just scry a sigil and cast it almost at the same time. But you could do this really quickly for micro things, right? So if we go through the basic form of what I was going at, big things are more difficult. It means if you get to micro enchantments, really small things, it can be really easy. It doesn't necessarily mean they're not important. Sometimes very small enchantments are more important. Like, if you go to a business interview, summoning a demon on the spot might be not the most ideal job interview thing. But taking some oil and putting it on your hands and charging it right before it might just be enough influence, right? Or doing a sigil magic so your car doesn't get illegally ticketed for the illegal mission system, right? So you can use these much more, right? This is kind of like you're actively engaging in the universe to try to change things, actively as you need to.
What about using the electrical/organic bioenergetic discharge of the great thunderstorm?
Oh, now we're getting away from sigil magic, but yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Nothing is true, everything's permitted, right?
Amount of power. If two lovers can generate great power, then Father Sky and Mother Earth
Sure,
interacting.
but we probably generated that thunderstorm.
I understand.
Think about that.
Well, what's inside is like
Yeah,
what's
when was the
outside.
last time you saw a left-handed astronaut or something?
Yeah, exactly.
However, it may mean that the gods desire the sacrifice of a virgin. We're kind of finding that.
Well, I don't know, there's the Lionel train thing. Ours might be pretty good. So, but that's an excellent point. You could. What? I don't know.
Laundry?
Yeah, laundry, yeah. That's a good answer. So that is one thing you could do, right? Like that's another layer that you could just take the sigil, tap into the storm if you're so inclined. Obviously, for class exercise, that gets a little dicey. You might not be able to control that. The fact that there's a thunderstorm after your exercise that involves calling a storm to us already is cool.
That does bring up a good point. Could you conceivably get better results? Say if you were doing sigil magic. There were two people who were in the middle of a sexual encounter where it was getting intense, and they were waiting at, the power generated by almost sacred sex. Incorporating that into sigil.
Sure. Because what is that? That's trance of choice. It's sexual gnosis at that point. So it's that's the choice to push your mind down and get it to happen. And that goes into what I was saying about maybe some types of trance don't work with some things. Like I would never use that situation for a curse or death curse or a painful curse because of the associations. But such an association might lend itself instantly to prosperity magic because it's a creative act. So it depends. You have to kind of, I imply in Hands-on Chaos Magic, which this is what my book looks like now that this is here. Yeah, we did all this already. There it is. Try to get another one. You can get it on Amazon anyone. But I imply in it that you have to kind of figure this out on your own because I'm not going to give it to you because everyone's neurology is different. Meaning, I could say this is the way to do it, but that's bullshit. Because the actual way to do it depends on you. You have to figure it out. You have to kind of map out the different states and what works best. So, in that case, you have to map out what rituals are there. I could do sigils for almost everything, but not every type of gnosis seems to work for every type of sigil that I've done. Like I have to kind of figure it out. Some things work better than others. Or some things have unintended consequences. If I put them through the ringer, pull them through one ringer and not another. Consequences that generally speaking I don't want. Sometimes I do. When I do want them, I'll go back to that. When I don't, cross it off the list. So
That said, have you ever really seen any kind of monkey's paw result from anything other than purely novice magician?
yes.
You have.
Yes, but not doing sigil magic. Doing other forms of magic. So, that I've done.
Can
So
you speak to just one such episode?
mostly it's time magic that gets the weirdest stuff happening. Where you start diving into different quantum streams, and then it gets a little weird. It gets weird because you're not expecting results, or there's other consequences. I haven't really seen any monkey's paw effects from like saying summoning demons per se, But I have seen the law give you stuff that you don't expect when you ask for stuff that's not clear. Stuff that you need. I've seen the angels do this to people too, actually. Where they will give you stuff that you need, but you didn't ask for. And you hate them for like months because you're like, damn you! I mean, anyone who does this probably knows what I'm talking about. But then you get to that point, like 4 months later, you're like, holy crap, this is exactly what I needed. Otherwise, shit would have went bad. I've had that happen a lot. Even though I wasn't asking for it. So is that a monkey paw effect, or are they
Or
just
division of will in the operator, like trying to curse somebody who's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that go badly. I've seen stuff like that go badly. So if we have those kind of effects, you expect some sort of monkey paw effect because your intentions are already muddled.
Yeah.
And at the same point, you love them, you hate them, so you're gonna curse yourself, basically, in that situation. So that's it. Exactly. If you're muddled intention, you're already in a lot of trouble.
I call it personally having a council of my inner pandemonium. I get all the parts together and let all of the guys and people,
You know, the funny thing about that is,
I hear all of
you know what the funny thing is? The funny thing about that technique is, I had to write a paper about that very technique for my damn MBA classes. They didn't call it inner pandemonium, which is more correct. So, yeah. But that's exactly it. And really, it comes down to a point where, you know, especially with curses, if you're not willing to walk over to a person and punch them in the face, why are you throwing a curse?
That's the best.
Right?
Across to the jump.
Right? So, yeah, there's people that I'm not going to go up to and punch in the face because I don't want to go to jail or lose my job. However, if there was a crash in the world economic system and there was total anarchy, I would walk up to them and punch them in the face. So that's the real thing. Do you really know yourself? You know, so, I mean, like Chaos Magic says, well, go do it, right? But there's an assumption that you know what you want, and if you don't, garbage in, garbage out.
Responsibility to the responsible.
That's right. So, and that's probably the biggest point. If you're going to use stuff like what I showed you, you got to know what you're going to want. No one's going to tell you to want this. If you visualize for it, you have to know, and you have to be sure. Clear motivation. And if you're not clear, that's when you can probably meditate on it. Think about it.
What is the Crow quote? When one man gathers himself in my presence, remember exactly. So we're always taking that to be the point.
Yeah. Does anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
Is it possible, I mean, it's not to be like sigil magic requires a lot of specificity, and each of not only know what you want, but you know, you come up with the design of the sigil. Can you ever use sigil magic if you want clarity about something?
Yes.
You really don't know.
Yeah. You can.
You're out of a situation where you want to use sigil magic to actually bring it to light.
Yes, because the intention there and how you frame the intention matters. The intention there isn't the clarity that you're seeking. That's the result.
That's the result, yeah.
The intention is to bring that clarity forward, which is very specific. Right? It isn't, the clarity and the illumination isn't necessarily the desire. That is the effect you're looking for. The actual, what you're actually enchanting for is the process of which the clarity comes from, which is very specific. And that's a framing. That's a framing issue of how you're framing it. You're saying, okay, what I'm actually sigilizing is, it is my will to gain illumination in this area. And I go that way. What the sigil magic is specifically working on is that bringing that says nothing about what the illumination is.
Right.
Which could be good or bad.
Right.
At that point, especially with the illumination.
The sigil part is, the sigilization is all about the process that you want to go on.
Yeah.
To make something clear.
Right.
Whatever the clarity is that happens is sort of irrelevant.
Yeah, because that's the end result. So if you get the clarification, the sigil worked. If the clarification isn't what you wanted, the sigil worked. If it is what you wanted, the sigil worked.
Right.
So it's not necessarily, that's right. It's a tool to get you where you want to go. It's a tool to get what you want.
Okay.
But it can be used in this way, in the way you're talking about for self-illumination. It can be used for self-healing. It can be used for healing. It can be used for almost anything. Steve, that's a good point, because then it depends on your creative ability to frame something
That's the other thing.
into a way you can use it.
Encapsulate it into the image.
Right.
And that, yeah.
Or how do you encapsulate it into an enchantment
Yeah.
of some sort? So framing how creative you are at framing is how many different things you can do. So, yeah.
Yeah, something that I wonder about John Gordon. This is just how I was taught. Was if you're gonna leave the sigil around, if you need compression, put vowels in it, because that's what animates words. So it's resonant with like the ambient atmosphere.
That's a very neo Egyptian kind of thinking, and Golden Dawn. So yeah, from those paradigms, they do believe that. I'm not a member of the Golden Dawn, so I might not buy into that. But it depends on what you believe at that point. So yes, if you have beliefs that relate to what should happen with sigils, you have to watch that, right? To get rid of vowels and stuff like that. Because if vowels are active agents, those are active symbols working while you do the sigil. This comes back to knowing what your paradigms are actually and what your systems are you're working with. So it's a good point. Anything you bring to the table when you're doing sigil magic is it. It's you, right? So anything you bring. You have spirit allies, sigil magic. Oh, look, they make your hand go a different direction. It's still what you bring to the table. If that makes sense. This is just a pen. Now, all the other things around you can argue about how to use that pen, or you can argue about how to use the pen with yourself. Does anyone else have any questions? So I'm teaching more advanced classes tomorrow, I promise. This is kind of like, I consider it like the beginning. So, if no one has any questions, I'm going to get off the stage. Thank you.
Most excellent.
Oh,